that he would not take a trade right now of AJ Brown straight up for Debo, and I think Dan nearly fell out of his chair. So we're Team AJ Brown on the Go District. I know you are as well.
Yeah, I'm also Team Debo though, so that's a tough
well.
one.
Listen, how could you not be Team Debo right now?
I'm both those. Yeah, I've got both those. Debo's my most. These guys are sick of hearing me saying it, but Debo's my most owned dynasty guy. But
that's awesome.
Listen, how could you not be Team Debo right now?
I'm both those. Yeah, I've got both those. Debo's my most. These guys are sick of hearing me saying it, but Debo's my most owned dynasty guy. But
that's awesome.
Listen, how could you not be Team Debo right now?
I'm both those. Yeah, I've got both those. Debo's my most. These guys are sick of. Sorry, guys. You know what? Debo's my most owned dynasty guy, but wow.
No issue.
I apologize. You know what I had? I had our stream running on a different window. I didn't even realize it, and I was getting like 5 echoes in my ear.
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
We heard it. We heard it. Yeah.
All right, Thursday tailgate, guys. Let's get right into it, man. We got a big guest tonight, Theo. It's you and I. Dan's got real world stuff. Andrew's got kids and stuff. So let's get right into it, man. Big weekend coming up, and we got a big guest. So why don't you introduce the men?
Yeah, so coming on the show tonight is my boy Dalton Cates from Apex Leagues and from 4 for 4. Dalton and I actually got to meet in Vegas at the live FFPC drafts. We'd known each other from Twitter a little bit beforehand, but I got to talking with Dalton, and Dan Williamson also was talking with Dalton, and we said you'd be a great guest to have on the Go District. Dalton has some very sharp takes on his, especially on the dynasty level. I love what you're saying on dynasty, and also a very good redraft player. And he also has skin in the game. He's a competitive, high stakes player as well. So we're really happy to have Dalton on the show. Welcome, Dalton. Good to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to chat it up with you guys. Talk about a lot of different things today. And of course, I know Dan's not here, but I have to rep AJ Brown for both of us.
No doubt. No doubt. We love a little AJ Brown love on the Go District podcast, especially after Billy Muzio's slander of putting AJ Brown behind Debo Samuel. What do you think of that one? Much respect to the guys at Fantasy Data, as Billy Muzio and Bradley Stadler had us on the other night. But I'm still AJ Brown over Debo. I don't care what he's done this year. What do you have to say about that, Dalton?
Yeah, I think they're close. I think if you look at just their range of outcomes for their career, I think they're both going to be in a similar range. So for me, I'm always going to lean on the youth there, and AJ being a couple years younger than Debo, that's going to be the tiebreaker for me. And AJ Brown has been an absolute baller and an efficiency monster, and it's just waiting on the volume to really catch up to that efficiency, and then we'll see him really truly have these seasons that Debo's having right now. So I think it's definitely a close. It's a debate. If someone says Debo over AJ Brown, I'm not going to fault them for that. But I gotta rock my guy over there.
Especially when you're rocking the jersey, right?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So one thing the Goat District loves, and all of our listeners love, is making some cold hard cash. Let us know about your new gig at 4 for 4, which is really on the gambling end of football.
Yeah. So 4 for 4 just picked me up. This will be my second week writing an article for them, and it's funny because it's not like normal props or betting that I'm doing.
Was this a trade deadline transaction, or were you a free agent at the time?
Free agent for the most part. I kind of just
nice.
So my Odell Beckham midseason pickup.
Nice.
So I'm specializing in weekly specials. So it's really weird because starting in week 5, I was doing props and I was grinding those a ton. And there's one week where I was I'm just gonna throw I literally threw 3 bets, and it was just 3 long shot bets of who's gonna have the most points this week, who's gonna have the most rushing yards, and then another one of rushing quarterback yards. I ended up somehow hitting all 3 of them, and I was that's crazy. What are the chances of me hitting 3 long shot bets in a week? So I started looking at that market a little more, and the next week I hit on the top rush of the week, and the week after I hit the top rush of the week, and then the week after I hit the top rush of the week, and I'm just it got to the point where I hit a big play, and I was posting all these in the Discord, and they're hey, we'll have you hop on there. So that's really my main focus on weekly specials. Find guys who are gonna get the most yards this week in rushing, receiving, all that. So that's what it's mainly focused on. In my first article, I kind of broke down what the range of outcomes we're looking for on a week-to-week basis, because you know how it is. Like, there are some players who have the ability to have these monster weeks, and kind of just identifying those guys. What are the range we're looking for? How often are these players doing it? Do they have a good matchup this week? And just kind of like finding values based on the market and identifying that. So yeah, it's been profitable so far. Market's definitely catching on a little bit. But it's definitely been good, and it's been a nice little niche that, you know, I've been able to put out there for myself.
That's great. And do you have any winners you can drop for the Goat District listeners heading into this weekend?
Yeah, so I got one. There's a couple that I did get earlier today, but those lines already moved. The one that I like right now is Jamar Chase on FanDuel plus 1,900 most receiving yards on Sunday. So if we look at a couple of his games already, he's had, you know, ceiling games, 159 yards, 201 yards. And if we look over his past, 6 games, he's had 9 or more targets in these games. The matchup this week is pretty favorable. Currently right now, over the last 3 weeks, the Raiders are last in EPA for dropback. For defense, and it really gives them an opportunity. Chase, we know, we want guys who have splash playability, who can hit on these long touchdowns. And if we're looking at him compared to some of the other top guys, he's not priced, where guys like Devonte Adams or, these all guys like plus 1,000 or even less. So Jamar Chase absolutely deserves to be in the conversation as one of the best wide receivers. And when he's not priced as one of those guys, he's someone that I think that, absolutely has that ceiling within his range of outcomes.
Nice. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish I could get more this week, but that's really like, I mean, I hit on Lamar Jackson plus 6,500. They had him on DraftKings for most passing yards, but that line already moved. So in terms of like stuff I'm looking at right now, I'm really not finding anything that I'm super confident in this week versus like other weeks in the past. Sometimes there's more weeks where it's like, all right, I'm finding guys that multiple options that I really like. And this week it's more like, like kind of give or take on some guys, but Jamar Chase is probably my favorite one still available right now on FanDuel.
No, I like that one a lot. I mean, I think that the Bengals coming off the bye is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm curious, JD, what JD's take is on this one. We're week 11 now. We're churning along. Who's going to be in the Super Bowl, JD? Give me your NFC and your AFC picks to make it to the Super Bowl.
Oh wow!
And then who is the winner?
Man, I thought you'd go to the guest first. We can
go to Dalton.
Let the guest go first. Let the guest go first. This is like I haven't even looked at your lineup of questions here, Theo. You prepped today's show, so I'm almost like a guest here. So let Dalton take it first, and I'll go think about it for a sec.
Yeah. So my Super Bowl prediction right now, NFC is super tough. My AFC take, I have to stick with the Chiefs. I know they've been struggling a bit right now, but if we're looking at like a macro sense and we're looking at Patrick Mahomes over the past 3 seasons, he's been the best quarterback in football. And we know that's the biggest advantage that you can have in the NFL right now. Last 2 years, the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. And despite their struggles, we finally saw them last week kind of like get back to the old Chiefs. They still have, 7 to 8 weeks left in the season to kind of get right. I mean, if you look at like the NBA, you look like LeBron James, he's not really like, going so hard in the regular season, but every single time in the playoffs, his team is making runs and they're making those things. And I think the Chiefs right now are a team that, maybe got a little bit too much, hate and recency bias in what they're doing this season rather than what we've seen over them the past couple of years, and understanding that they do have playmakers. They have the, arguably the best player in the game on their team. And that's a play that, I really like out of the AFC. And the NFC gets really tricky because I think you have some legitimate teams. I'm a Cardinals fan, so there's a little bit of bias there. And I think they're playing really good offensively and defensively. Cowboys are also, they're top offense in the league right now, and they have a really good defense. So I think them and the Buccaneers, and then you can also make case for the Rams as well. I'm going to just go like biased here, like Cardinals and the Chiefs. I would just personally would love to see that, but I think you can make a legitimate case for 4 NFC teams, and I think Chiefs are probably my favorite out of the AFC right now.
And who wins Cardinals Chiefs, Dalton, in your Super Bowl? Are you going with the hometown, or are you going with your?
Gotta go with the homer. How can you even ask that? How can you even ask that?
There you go.
I gotta go with the homer. Yeah, no, we're just playing on a different level right now. We have a lot of good veterans. We got great leadership, but I mean, Patrick Mahomes, that's tough to beat right there. So,
100%. What about you, JD?
Hey, Theo, this is like when I pass it to Dan and he just every name I have on my list just gets taken off. But yeah, funny enough, I'm thinking Arizona out of the NFC. I always like the Packers just because it's kind of like Brady. Brady and Rodgers. You can never really bet against them. The Cowboys are looking good, obviously, but I like the Cardinals. Kind of, they check off all the boxes. I think at this point, if the injury bug can kind of go somewhere else, I think they'll be good to make a strong run. The AFC is a lot trickier. I think right now I would go the Bills would probably be my first pick to win the AFC, but I would not be surprised to see the Patriots at this point. To the Patriots, I just like how fitting would it be the year after Brady comes out and makes everyone doubt, like, was Belichick that good? Was this all Brady? And then he comes back this year and he just put together, we talked about it last week, Theo, or on the last show, sorry, just how this team is put together and how the strengths are starting to show now. And with Mac Jones living, I would say more than living up to, the expectation, I guess, probably from Belichick, but this team looks strong. So because the AFC is so wide open, I think a team like that could definitely sneak through. And then you've got teams like the Ravens and the Chargers that have had their up and downs, but they've got they've got the weapons. They've got what it takes to make some good runs. I think injuries, like every season, I think will probably play a factor, especially down the stretch when they're trying to place themselves in this playoff picture.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's actually difficult picking the AFC and the NFC right now. But for me, in the AFC, I'm going to stick with the Bills. I know we saw them struggle in Jacksonville, but I like what they have on defense, and I think that the offense is going to continue figuring it out. They had a nice bounce back game against the Jets, and I expect them to kind of get it going moving forward. And I like their defense. I like how they keep pressure on the opposing offense. And then my pick out of the NFC is Green Bay. I think Green Bay, their defense is really coming along. I like what we're seeing out of A.J. Dillon, and I think that they're really going to ride Dillon the next couple of weeks with Jones out. Hopefully they get Jones coming back healthy and fresh, and you have Dillon kind of, on a run with a strong defense, and it's kind of Aaron Rodgers' one last run. And I'll go with the Packers in the Super Bowl as Super Bowl champions if they get head-to-head with anybody in Aaron, let's say Aaron Rodgers' last game. It'd be very fitting. You've had the whole, adversity with Rodgers missing, with the whole COVID thing, just to end with him winning the Super Bowl would be a hell of a story. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But it's certainly setting up for really, really good playoffs.
For sure. It's like the last dance out there in Green Bay.
No, absolutely. So I want to pivot over to Dynasty. Dalton's been putting out some fire on Twitter with his Dynasty takes. Recently, you tweeted about Kyle Pitts as the potential #1 overall pick in Dynasty startups, and not just FFPC tight end premium. I think you meant all PPR leagues.
Yeah.
You also had some really great historical comps for Kyle Pitts. Elaborate on the historical comps and your expectations for his career, and what led you to making this comment about him being the #1 pick in Dynasty startups.
Yeah, so I think we just have to take a step back and realize that Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver who's playing tight end. So when we're looking at comps and we're looking at that stuff, like, he just doesn't fit in the same realm of any tight end. Like, you look at the comps and he just blows everyone out of the water. So that's when we start to have to look at, who are the wide receivers that he's, putting up these numbers up to. And when he's comping on a wide receiver level up to these like elite guys and has these elite historical comps, we almost have to treat him as how we would treat somebody with an elite wide receiver comp profile within their context, right? We all knew Pitts was like this generational tight end who was going to do things in the NFL. And now he has done that, and he is well on pace to becoming a superstar offensive weapon, whatever you want to call him. The reason why I think that the 101 is something that's in the conversation for him is the edge that a tight end can give over the replacement. Tight end is, naturally every single year, it's not deep. And if you look at redraft and you look at win rates every single year, like, one of the biggest edges you can gain in redraft is by drafting an elite tight end. You can get almost a 50% edge just by drafting a tight end in the top 3 rounds on best ball data, but that also translates to redraft. Now, if you can get a guy who's 22 years old and, can give you potential wide receiver 1 numbers over the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like, yes, let's say Jamar Chase has similar production to him, but now you're slotting in, a replacement level wide receiver versus a replacement level tight end. And that's where you can get a massive edge. We saw Travis Kelce have one of the top win rates last year at 32 years old and at tight end position. And now you have Kyle Pitts, who can potentially be putting up these monster numbers for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like, I don't even think it's a hot take at all. I think like the main discussion is, do you take him over Jonathan Taylor or Jamar Chase? But like, for me, he's a locked in top 5 pick. Like, I don't even think it's a question. And I think that, he's someone that literally can break fantasy and just be like that actual difference maker, where we see these dynasty teams who year in, year out competing. The top teams are the ones with Kyle Pitts on their team. Like, he has that type of potential to be one of the best, like, fantasy assets ever. Like, he can literally be that good in fantasy. And the fact that he's literally just turned 21 years old, like, it just adds on to, every single thing that we already know about him.
Yeah, I love the take. And I think that you're going to see this in a lot of the FFPC dynasty startups. It'll be very interesting to see which way, most players are going. But I think it's, him breaking out at such a young age and looking so impressive. No, I'm all on board that one. JD, what do you think? JD's on mute.
Sorry, guys. I'm new. Sorry, first time on the show, man. I'm new to this podcast thing. Dan and I pulled that trade that we were talking about in the DMs with Pitts. That's why I was kind of nice to see that on the show sheet. Maybe we'll run it by our guest. Yeah, I mean, actually, one thing I do want to ask our guest is how he thinks Pitts down the stretch now, with Atlanta losing their weapons, like Patterson, and obviously the tree can't get any more narrow, but is that going to hurt him just with all the attention he's getting now? You think, like, just for our redraft kind of guys, how do you think that plays out the rest of the season before I talk to you about our trade here?
No, I don't think it's too much of a concern. I think the main issue with that is the efficiency might go down, but that's going to be counteracted by more volume. It's going to receive. So, okay. Like, obviously when you're having a Calvin Ridley or you're having someone else, elite alongside you, like, that's obviously going to boost your efficiency, and it's going to boost the offense as a whole. So maybe like the touchdown opportunities aren't there as much. But in terms of volume, like, you can make an argument that he may be seeing the most volume out of any tight end the rest of the year. So, I mean, we see these rookies in the second half of the year. They really boost their production up quite a bit. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Pitts is ranging 8 to 10 targets a game, getting more reds and getting actual touchdowns. Like, that's been the main, like, evasive thing with Pitts is he hasn't been getting touchdowns, but he's been getting the looks there. So, that variance is also going to pop up as well. So I think, like, he can be an absolute stud the rest of the way.
I think that's a great point on the touchdowns. He's only at one touchdown right now?
One touchdown this year.
So he's at one touchdown right now. So it would be like the positive regression.
Well, he's going to score at least one more touchdown with Atlanta this year.
No doubt he might score one tonight. You'd like to see him score one tonight.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I gotta retract a bit because I said Dan had real life. I forgot Dan wasn't feeling well, so I hope you're feeling better soon, buddy. Honestly, I know he's making a shot at the AJB, but he was the first 101 AJB in best ball land. Is Dan Williamson, Mr. the overhyped sleeper? So shout out to Dan. Hope he's feeling better tonight. And Kyle wants the trade. All right, here's a trade. And actually, Dalton, the best part of this trade is that Dan and I made this with Theo, which I actually completely forgot. So this is a big money league. It's kind of the GOAT League's big money league. And we gave up as a contender Zach Wilson, Kyle Pitts, and a 23 second. For Diggs, we have Allen, George Kittle. This is a 2 tight end league. And a 2022 early second, which would be Theo's.
And also Superflex.
Superflex, 2 tight end.
So basically, you went like from Pitts to Kittle, and then you went from Wilson to Diggs, and then basically just like swap seconds essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, like, I don't love it personally, just because I think if we look at the rest of the year, I think that Pitts and Kittle probably is going to have, negating production. And if we look at the value of what you're getting over the next, 3, 4, 5 years, I think that at some point, Kittle is going to decline. I don't know if that's 3 years from now. I don't know if it's 5 years from now, but at some point, Pitts is still going to be producing way past Kittle. And I think Diggs obviously is a stud, and, he gives you that elite production, not only this year, next couple of years, but I think that overarching Pitts value component is going to be something that can really elevate your team if you do have him in terms of a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I love the trade. So
I love the trade too, man. I love the trade. I do it again, like right now. I love it.
You guys got to take it down this year. But I'm feeling
and
good about that trade.
That's exactly. We're going to take it down. Me in stacks. Yeah. I'm a sucker for stacking Allen and Diggs. I mean, that's a super stack. Down the stretch. And I think we bought him at a time when Diggs' value was a little low because he hadn't necessarily been, and that offense is looking a little wonky.
So we all love Kyle Pitts, and I think we can all agree that he's the tight end one in Dynasty. I think it's anybody otherwise is you can't even argue it at this point. Who is the tight end 2 in Dynasty startups next year?
I think it's tough. I think it depends on your build because I think this is where like the tier comes in. For me personally, I've always been a big Kittle guy. So I think you got JD. I mean, you're gonna like that. I like Kittle a lot. His historical comps are actually like very on par with what Kelsey's doing. Kelsey's obviously outproducing him a little bit more, but we have to take into account Kelsey's gonna be 33 heading into next year, and Kittle is gonna be a few years younger. Waller, I would say, would be in the conversation, but this year really hasn't gone to plan as everyone would have hoped. He's been good, but he hasn't been great. And Mark Andrews, I think, is also in that conversation. But I do have some volume concerns there because Marquise Brown has been breaking out, and I think Rashad Bateman is ready to take the next step. So I would say Kittle's probably my Dynasty 2 or tight end 2 right now. I think you're going to get very close production to Kelsey, maybe not to that extent, but Kittle's just an absolute animal. Any single time he's on the field, he was in the conversation a year and a half ago before Kelsey, had his monster season last year. It was Kelsey and Kittle. And then what happened? Kittle didn't necessarily play bad. He just kind of got hurt, and Kelsey just played amazing. But when we take into their historical range of outcomes, Kittle is on par to being one of the best tight ends of all time. He had, led, all tight ends in yards.
Even as a blocking tight end.
Yeah, exactly. He's a football player, and he's going to be a valuable piece for the next few years. And I think that if it's not something that the market's necessarily going to have him at tight end 2, but he's someone that I do think over these next few years is going to continue his dominant production and will likely outlast Kelsey a little bit.
So I think that's an interesting take. I do wonder how he will mesh with Trey Lance, and we just haven't seen it. Trey Lance used tight ends in college. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing to gauge with because they certainly weren't running a pro offense. But I would go Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews for me is probably my tight end 2 next year. I think with the big contract they gave him, his 26-year-old age, and the talent we see on the field, and his connection he has with Lamar Jackson, I think that's my tight end 2. But I think it's very much up in the air. We wanted it to be T.J. Hawkinson, but it just hasn't happened. And at some point,
where do you have Hawk? You're a little scratchy, Theo. So
let me leave it.
If you can try it, just because I don't know if you guys hear that, or is that me? Hold on.
I think we're good right now.
Yeah, I think it was me. Yeah, that was me. All right. So when he comes back, I'll leave. But yeah, TJ Hawk. Where do you have TJ Hawk in your rankings? What is he, like 4 or 5-ish around there?
I've actually been a little bit lower on him. I've always had Fant ahead of him. So Fant just since he came into the league, I had him and Hawk roughly similar, and then Fant just had a better rookie year. And if we compare both their years or the careers up to this point, Fant has been a little bit more efficient than Hawk. Hawk has had more volume, but I think Fant over the long run, that's going to naturally cater to him. He's a better athlete, so he does have more upside. So I think they're in the same tier. So right now my top 5 would be, right, I'd have Fant 6, I'd have Hawkins 7. So that's where I have Hawk right now. It's a little bit lower than consensus, but my concerns with Hawkinson is I'm not sure he really possessed the elite abilities that we're looking for. I think he'd be a really good tight end and someone that, you can rely on for the next, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. but I'm not sure he's going to give you game-breaking production. I think Fant has a little more upside to this athletic ability.
So how do you have the top 5, Theo?
That's something I'd have to put some thought into. Kelsey's still interesting because Kelsey, if he smashes to end the year, can we project?
I think he still has to be top 3, Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean Kelsey's just he's so dominant, and people get around the fact that it's dynasty. They think it's got to be a completely young team. I mean Kelsey can win you the money for a year or two. That still matters. So, like Kelsey is definitely. The way he plays too, I feel like he could play until 37 years old, something like that, like Tony Gonzalez.
Oh, he's tied to Mahomes too. Doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. So,
which is TJ Hawkinson's problem, right? He's got the worst quarterback in the league.
TJ Hawkinson is tied to whoever they're going to put out there. So he's a frustrating guy. I actually tweeted a Pat Freiermuth or TJ Hawkinson in Dynasty, and some people got angry. Hawkinson's so much, and I'm like, what are we watching here? At some point, points matter and production matters. I mean, we can talk about draft capital and how you flash certain games and all that, but you can put it on the offense, you can put it on anything you want, but tight end 3 overall in Dynasty should not be having a 0 in week 10.
Agreed.
Where are you guys on Gesicki? Like coming into the season, I think he was a hot topic just because we're on tight ends, and Tua has been really up and down. That offense has been kind of up and down. That team just overall. Where are you guys on Gesicki? Is he still top 10-ish for you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, he's top 10. He's tough though because he's going to be I don't think his contract. I mean, his contract's up. I don't know if they're going to.
And they brought in Hunter Long.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of his future. But if you look at him as an actual player, he's been good the past couple years, and I think he can be a reliable guy. I'm just not sure that he's a difference maker. And that's essentially what I'm looking for in a tight end is who are the guys who can be those difference makers, because those are the guys who are winning leagues week in and week out. Whereas otherwise, you're just finding guys who can be solid production and they aren't giving you these bad weeks. I think there's really 10 or maybe 11 guys who reasonably can give you decent production, and then you want the top few guys. Other than that, it's a crapshoot. So I think Gesicki's definitely in that range, but he's not someone I'm extremely excited about. He's not someone I'm going out of my way to roster. If I have him, I'm not really selling him, but he's kind of there for me. So I don't really have a strong take on Gesicki, to be honest.
Gesicki's actually a super interesting player because he the salary cap guru and also the tight end guru, Dan Williamson, points out, he's a free agent. So he's been lined up in the slot in Miami often. He's playing basically a wide receiver role in Miami, and he's having all this production. How do we know that the next team that signs him is going to use him the same way? So if he gets signed by an offense that gives him a big contract, and we hear whispers that he's going to be moved all over the field like a Kyle Pitts is, or like he's being used in Miami, then I think that kind of solidifies him. But if he goes into some, vanilla offense, used more like an inline tight end, then he loses a ton of value. So I think
he goes to Green Bay. He ends up in Green Bay, Theo. It's okay.
Green Bay attached to Rodgers would be great.
That'd be sick.
We can name a bunch of offenses and a bunch of coaches we'd like to see him attached to, but I think that's an important one. Where he signs matters. I think he's not system proof. He's not Travis Kelce. He's a guy who's using his athleticism and basically playing wide receiver and putting up low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 stats as a tight end, and that's why he's been productive. So, exactly. And Dan makes a great point. Yeah, that would be a team signing him to be in line would be terrible. He's got to be used in the same way to maintain his production. So. He's definitely an interesting free agent this offseason.
Hold on, Theo. Hold on. Guys, smash the like button. Tight end Preem goodness being dropped. Buddy's Dalton's got his AJ Brown jersey. Just for that, you should be smashing the like button to subscribe. Drop your questions. Any questions, comments? Joey, welcome. Always a blast having you in. We've got Andrew and Dan, Kyle, always around. We appreciate him. Kyle and I and Ty from True North are going to be putting a Thanksgiving special GOAT District on the day of, I keep saying U.S. Thanksgiving because for me it's U.S. Thanksgiving, right? Because I'm, shout out to the Canadian National Best Ball League that I'm just crushing this year. So Will sent me this hat. But yeah, next Thursday, guys, tune in. We're going to try to get it going around 10:30, 11 o'clock Eastern AM before the game start and give you guys a bit of goodness, get you ready for the day. Well, maybe, all you Americans are eating turkey and stuff. We'll drop some goodness. So smash the like, guys. Dalton's dropping the goodness. Let's keep going, Theo.
So recently you mentioned Chase Claypool and T. Higgins as strong buy lows in Dynasty. What historical comps are you seeing with these guys, and why are you so sure they're both going to smash? And that being said, we love T. Higgins. I think he's less polarizing than Claypool right now, but maybe share your thoughts on both.
Yeah, so last year I wrote an article, and I was basically just like looking at, rookie seasons and how they comped historically. Basically just like used a couple of variables. I was able to find like a target minimum threshold, efficiency minimum threshold, and a weight threshold. And by finding that, I was basically able to find 100% hit rate for wide receivers who had over 230 PPR points. And then 2/3 of the people who hit that list became multiple perennial wide receiver ones. And I define a wide receiver one by a wide receiver who has over 245 PPR points, since that's the average wide receiver 12 production since 2000. So I found a 67% hit rate for perennial wide receiver ones based on those thresholds. And when I went to go do some research this year for all the rookies, Chase Claypool and T. Higgins were the only two wide receivers in this draft class that were able to do it. And if we look past the past 3 seasons, in the 2018 class, it was DJ Moore and Cortland Sutton, who DJ Moore we know is already a stud, and we know Cortland Sutton became a stud in his second year and is a really good player. Obviously had his injury last year, and some obviously things going on last.
Another good buy in Dynasty.
Great buy in Dynasty, exactly. And we look at 2019 class, and it identified 4 wide receivers: AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and Debo Samuel, which are arguably the top 4 in that class. And I think one thing that really, makes it a stronger conviction on that was Debo Samuel last year. We knew he was a good player. He had injuries. They had Ayuk there. They had Kittle there. So there was a lot of question about his dynasty value and how good he could potentially be alongside those guys. Where is he going to get the targets? How's he going to do? And just by using that historical data, he would actually be an outlier not to do that. And this year we're seeing him ball out. And I think it's the same thing with guys like Claypool and Higgins. A lot of guys, we want to see this year 2 breakout, and it happens a lot of times for these guys. But sometimes a lot of careers aren't built the same. And we have to look at this from a macro standpoint. All right, what is going on historically? What have we seen from these guys in their rookie seasons that would show that these guys are good players? Well, we know Claypool is a freak athlete. He was efficient. He played very well as a rookie. He was getting targets. I think he had over 100 targets as a rookie. So he was getting volume. He was getting fed. And why is he not doing well this year? Well, first off, he's been dealing with injury. B, Ben Roethlisberger has declined a ton. So there's legitimate reasons why Claypool has not been good. But when you're looking at comps for him after his rookie year, he's almost comping to guys not to the extent of guys like Megatron and DK, just because they were a little bit younger prospects, but he can be almost like a 75 to 80% version of that. And right now, where are you able to buy an absolute just mega freak athlete who's an alpha wide receiver who has great historical comps and is currently on a downtrend right now just because he's injured and he hasn't performed this year? I think that's where some of the biggest edges in Dynasty are, just taking a step back. All right, let's take all the recency bias out. Let's try and focus on what actually matters. And for Claypool to not, become at minimum like one season where he's just very good would just be he would be just be an outlier, and at minimum. And if not, he'd be just an absolute stud who's just crushing the league for the next few years. And same thing goes with Higgins as well. Higgins, I think there's less controversy with Higgins, but I think a lot of people do like him. There's a lot. He's getting the volume there.
Also because of Burrow.
Yeah, exactly. He's tied well to Burrow. We know having another elite wide receiver alongside you is very good. I believe it's over the past. I did just some quick research on this a year ago, and of the top 15 scoring wide receivers since 2018, 11 of them had another teammate in the top 15. So like basically having another good guy alongside you's good. And Jamar Chase, we know, is all right. He's like dynasty wide receiver 1 right now. Like, you know, Higgins is going to thrive. Defenses are starting to put their attention on Chase. So I've seen Higgins start to have better games recently. The breakout is coming for Higgins. Like I'm so convicted on Higgins right now. Like he's like I have him extremely high right now, and I'm not wavering because I know we haven't seen it, but it's not about what have we seen. It's what are we going to see, and I think that's what we really need to be focusing on is what's predictable, what are things that we've seen, and what do his comps say. And this guy's a 21-year-old wide receiver last year who was efficient. Comps, like the closest comp was DeAndre Hopkins. And now he has Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, and an offense is passing a ton. Like, what else could you want out of a young wide receiver? I feel so like I think Higgins is just gonna be an absolute star in this league. He's gonna be a superstar. Him and Chase are gonna be dynamic, and they're gonna be frustrating.
Yeah, and they look like men amongst boys out there. Like Higgins is a beast. Like he's wide, he's thick, and he's like a savage grabbing that ball. And Claypool, I mean, for him to stand out the way he did last year as a rookie, I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm Canadian, Mr. Mapletron himself, but like that guy's a self-made beast on the field. You know, like he grew up here, man, where football is not top of mind. And he threw himself on YouTube. Like his story is amazing. I think what you said is dead on, man. This is an outlier. Big Ben is a big part of that. Injuries are a big part of that. And those are the type of things you want as an opportunity. Right now in crypto, there's a dip happening in crypto. You buy the dip, guys. You don't buy when there's a fucking green dildo on the screen. That's not when you buy. You buy when it's bleeding red. I teach my daughter every day. I ask her, she's 5. I teach her every day. What color do we buy? What color do we sell, Saleh? What color do we buy? Because I want her to know. It's the same with fantasy, man. If you play that, especially guys like that, like talented physical specimens that have already shown it. That's important to me. They've shown it. And a guy like Higgins, like you said, is even sexier because of that Burrow link. So if Pittsburgh can get a quarterback in there next year, I don't know if it's Rodgers or who it is that, you know, something exciting like that. I mean, Claypool's going to blow up. So right now, buy that dip.
Claypool, it's interesting. We talked about Debo Samuel. There's some parallels between year 2 Debo versus year 3 Debo, where people forgot about what a beast he was as a rookie and what a physical monster in a completely different way than Claypool. I mean, Debo's more of like a running back size guy who just bowls through defenders. And then he takes the step back, had some injuries year 2, and then, you know, in redraft falls to, you know, 7th, 8th round, and then completely smashes it. Also slipped in dynasty startups as well. But Claypool, you know, was so dominant his rookie year, several games, had a couple of smash games, and just such a physical specimen. I think, I agree with you. I think he is a buy low, just on the chance that if he fails and he doesn't hit, he's a wide receiver 3. But if he smashes, he can end up being a wide receiver 1, and he has several paths to get there. So I think that's a great call. And Higgins, to me, is a can't miss guy. I think it's difficult to buy low on Higgins.
Yeah.
When Chase was drafted, I tried to buy low on him, but he's so smooth. He's attached to a great quarterback. He's truly an alpha wide receiver 1.
6'4", 216. Like how many guys come in at 216 that are 6'4", you know, grabbing the ball like that? I don't know. He's fun to watch, man. I like guys that dominate physically like that.
No, I love Higgins. So just we have Dalton on here now. Dalton, who are your top 6 dynasty wide receivers for next year? Thinking about startups here.
Yeah, so I updated my rankings, I think like a week ago, and right now, so I got a top 5 tier, and it is Chase, Jefferson, AJ Brown, CD, DK, and then at 6 I have Higgins. So that's where I have him right now, and then I think there's a bunch of guys. I
think that's a hot take that he's there at 6. I think that's a hot take.
Yeah, no, I definitely that was some of the feedback. I posted it on Twitter, and it got a lot of engagement, and people were talking about it. And I think that was the one that kind of surprised people the most. But I mean, when you're looking at like a tier of players, when I'm comparing him to, so I have a big tier right off the top. I have a big tier. It's like guys like Debo, McLaurin, Diggs, Devonte, Cup, and the reason I'm ranking him higher than those guys is his historical comps are just really good. So his range of outcomes are technically in the same range as those guys. So even if he's hitting on his low end, he's still going to be likely a high end or a mid like wide receiver 2 for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Where on the high end, he can be an elite wide receiver 1 who's dominating. So I think the thing that I'm waiting for Higgins is to actually like physically see it, and then I think he's the closest to actually moving up into that tier with the AJ Browns and with the CeeDee Lambs and the DKs of the work. So I think he's right there. I just want to be able to like physically see it, and then I think like he can be as high as like 4 in my rankings.
Kyle Senra makes a great point about Tyreek Hill, and I think Tyreek
he
Hill
would be my 6. I've got the same 5 as you in the first, the game for me, the week winning that this guy possibility brings you on a weekly basis for you to just smash that week. I mean, if he smashes and one of the guys on your team smashes, your other guys can bust 6s and you'll still win. So that's to me is just so powerful. And he, Adams could also be in that class, but you're talking about almost 2 years difference between those two. And when you put in the Mahomes factor, for me, Hill sneaks a bit ahead of Adams. So for me, the 5 you named, and then Hill for me. So I agree with Kyle. Kyle's got him at 1, which you can't argue with that, right, Theo?
Yeah, I think Chase to me looks like he could be one of the best wide receivers of all time, and I don't think it's hyperbole. He's so dominant in such a quick amount of time. So for me, he's number 1. And then I think that Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, for me are all kind of right there. Rate them how you want.
You forgot one. Dalton, get up for a second. You forgot one.
I put AJ Brown. I put AJ Brown right with those guys, right behind them though. I'm going to take AJ wide receiver 5, and then for me, the only thing that keeps Tyreek Hill down to 6 is his age. He'll be 28 next season. So for a guy that is such an explosive, such a fast player, if he loses a step at all, 29, 30 years old, then he loses a ton of value. I mean, they could use him a little more lower ADOT routes, which he's capable of doing well on, but you need that vertical threat with Tyreek for him really to hit. So I still think he's top 6. I think it's difficult to rate guys like Kupp, difficult to rate guys like Adams, because we don't know how long they're going to last. That's why people are so scared of these 27, 28-year-old guys in Dynasty. But I think it's definitely a great mental exercise, as we start entering into, startup seasons, 6 months away. It's never too early to start doing these rankings. Pivoting over, RB1 Dynasty, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Absolute smash.
Come on, Theo.
Yeah.
You know what? I really wanted – I don't like doing this, like busting old tweets out and showing that I was right and stuff, but I really want to go back to like April or May, that JT 101 tweet that I put out there. I really want to go find that. I might take a sec to do that one day.
I love
that. Is he the redraft number 1 next year, guys, in regular PPR?
No.
Who's the read? CMC is still?
CMC.
Okay.
And
I thought he said Pitts.
I should have said it. No, I think the reason why I have Jonathan Taylor over CMC in Dynasty is because of age, and we've seen it like recently with Gurley, Le'Veon, like these guys they fall off pretty quickly. So I'm definitely like more hesitant when it comes to those guys. But CMC has already shown us like legendary seasons on there that I think Jonathan Taylor just can't reach because he doesn't get used enough in the receiving game. He's getting used like almost like Zeke in the early part of his career, where I think he has potential maybe to get, 60, 70 receptions, but to get to where CMC is, where he's a vital part of their passing attack and, has potential to put up 30 points per game. I just don't know if that's in Jonathan Taylor's range of outcomes. And for the immediate like future, I'm banking on Christian McCaffrey until he falls off. So that's more of my redraft take. I'm going to take CMC until he falls off. In Dynasty, I'm leaning Jonathan Taylor because he has an extra few years on him that CMC has already gone through in his career.
I'm not sure. I think that it'll be interesting to see how Taylor finishes the year and can CMC hold up. I mean, we've seen him go down back-to-back years, and I think that'll stay heavy on people's minds.
Durability, right?
That number 1 pick too. And Taylor with his breakaway ability is something we just haven't seen from a back of his size. He's just it's really difficult to gauge and see which way redraft players are going to go. I personally would probably go Jonathan Taylor. Probably go Jonathan Taylor. It's the first year with Wentz. You got to think that the offense is going to continue to get a little better. He's missing offensive linemen. And I think when it comes down to it, I think he's going to be the guy going number one overall in most PPR leagues. Which way would you go, JD?
Yeah, I'm easily JT. I mean, you guys see my Twitter handle. I'm a Colts fan. I mean, that might be biased, but JT's got everything you need. The offensive line is a big part of that for me. Like you said, Theo, a bit of injuries going on, but even when injuries are there, you still see those holes, and all he needs is one hole, man, and he's gone. And for me, again, similar to Hill, that home run power that he gives you on a weekly basis, and he's going to be he's the center of this offense right now. It's nice that Wentz is starting to really get comfortable in this offense. Pittman is really starting to step up, which is awesome. But I do think that JT is the engine that makes this offense run. And I also love the way Ballard focuses on the lines as he's building these teams, and that's always a priority for him. So you know that JT is going to be running behind a top end line for at least a little bit, and they're going to make sure that they use him to the max behind it. So for me, JT checks off all the marks. I love CMC. I love what he offers, especially in the passing game and all that. But does worry me with the injuries. And I mean, Carolina kind of worries me. You know, we don't really know what we're gonna have next year. Cam's here now and it mixes stuff up, and we'll see how that affects CMC for 2021. But for 2022, I think there's still questions there, and we'll see if CMC can get back and avoid the injury bug down the stretch.
Is there a not obvious type player that you're selling in Dynasty or that you're recommending people to cash out on? Dalton?
Yeah, this is probably a hot take, and I think people aren't going to like this, but this is someone that I'm extremely exposed to. It's my highest rostered player in Dynasty at this position, but I think it's Justin Fields. Right now, Justin Fields has a massive value constraint where he hasn't really lost value in Dynasty despite him playing bad. I mean, he has, but he hasn't to the extent where you're if you're holding Justin Fields right now, you're assuming a lot of risk. And if you could cash out right now for 85% of what you paid for your rookie draft, yes, you're giving up some potential upside. I think Justin Fields has the potential to be a stud, especially with his running ability. But we've seen these quarterbacks, and what he's done right now so far to this point in his career has actually been very discouraging from a historical standpoint. So for me, I think that I personally am very optimistic on Fields, and I have a lot of exposure to him. And he's someone that I'm actually trying to de-expose myself to because there is actually a lot of downside here, and you can trade him away. So I made a trade actually. I think it was Sunday morning. I traded away Justin Fields. I got Baker Mayfield, Jerry Jeudy, and a 2023 first. And obviously, I don't know if you're getting that type of value back, but if you can get something close to that, he still has market value. And he's someone that people have been hitting me up and being like, hey, can I get Fields to me? Thinking they're buying low in a sense. And, I'm fine cashing out very close to what I paid for him right now, especially with all my exposure. And I think you can get a lot of value back and get quarterbacks. You can get guys like Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr, 6+ a player. So you're getting production that is going to be good. It may not be elite production, but you get sustainable production plus picks to reload in the future with upside. So I think there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And cashing out on Fields for someone who I think has downside within his historical comps and from what we've seen from him so far, because he actually hasn't been good. I think there are some concerns with Justin Fields long-term, as much as I'm optimistic on his ability to buck the trend of how bad he's been this year.
JD, do you have any potential sell high type guys?
Yeah, are we for me, it always depends what your team looks like. If you're a contender or if you're in a rental mode. For me, rental mode makes it a lot easier. Obviously, someone producing now, you're going to move right away. But kind of pieces that I think want to consider, or actually, I don't know, I'm kind of torn on this one. I was thinking Devonte Smith could be a bit of a sell and then kind of a rebuy. One of those sell him while he's high, rebuy later on type of deal. Mike Evans is a guy I think would be a good time to sell if you don't think that he's giving you value moving past this year, that like you don't think that value stays. 28 years old. Godwin is kind of he's the alpha, I would say, in that offense. AB, who knows what's going on with AB? I mean, that guy's just like one disaster after another. And now he's got this whole fake vaccine type of thing going on, which just blows my mind. You think living with Brady would even prevent him from doing stupid things like that, but I don't know. We don't know.
The Bucks have his back on that one though.
Did they? All I saw was the Bucks released a statement and then press here, and I never pressed it, so I didn't hear what. Okay, so they got his back.
Yeah, they had his back on that one. So yeah,
okay.
No, I think that JD makes a great point. I mean, if you're not going to win your league, and if you realistically are not in the top, 3 or 4 in points,
yes,
be realistic with yourself. If you have a chance to cash out on some of these older guys, you probably should do so. It's difficult when you look at guys like a Keenan Allen, who might be able to maintain his exact same production for another year or two, but when it comes to physical, players, it's always kind of best to err on the side of cashing out, in my opinion. One for me that we've talked about it for a couple weeks now is potentially Debo Samuel, which is, I just look at it I play a lot of NFFC, and I don't see myself taking Debo Samuel like 15th next year overall. It's an NFFC is a start 3 wide receiver format with 1 flex, so wide receivers go a lot higher. I just don't see it. It's hard for me not to consider cashing out on a player who's playing this dominantly, who's had injuries in the past, and is just such a physical player. I don't know. I think it might be completely incorrect, and I certainly have a good amount of Debo in Dynasty. But I think that right now, you're looking. Some people might value him as a top 5 or 6 wide receiver in Dynasty. He's playing that well, and he's. I think this might be the time just to send out some feelers and see if you can get a package that's big enough to move on. You might be able to get, a T. Higgins plus a first rounder from a contender. You might be able to get more than that in some leagues. I mean, the guy, what he's doing week in, week out, he looks like the kind of guy that's going to, continue smashing for the rest of the season. So I think it's worth taking feelers on him. As good as he is and as young as he is, I just don't ever see him being a first round pick type guy in NFFC. That's just my take. Maybe I'm off on that one. But I would definitely get some feelers with the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You mind if I go back to Justin Fields real quick? I just looked up some historical comps for him.
Go ahead.
Okay, so some of his closest comps right now are Mitchell Trubisky, Sam Darnold, Brandon Weeden. He does have Josh Allen in there, which is definitely positive. But Joe Flacco, Blake Bortles, Matt Leinart.
All Hall of Famers.
It's basically right. It's
gold
Daniel
jackets.
Jones, yeah. I mean, at the top of it, there's Russell Wilson as well. So you have some guys who start off a little slow. Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, but for the most part, these first round quarterbacks who don't do well off the bat, they're historically not going to do good. And, there's a lot of reason to think that, maybe it's the offense with Matt Nagy. Maybe he doesn't have enough weapons. So there's a lot of context behind it that the reason potentially he's doing bad. But still, we're almost betting on him just bucking that trend in order for him to be, the superstar quarterback that everyone wants him to be.
I don't know. Fields is interesting for me because if people are treating him like he's, quarterback 6 in a super flex, then I could see, cashing out. But it's hard for me not to see him playing better next year. And he's looked better the last few games. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting take though, because super flex leagues you could get a ton for him.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult player to gauge because I think that the coaching staff was so poor with him to start out, and we've actually seen it kind of improve a little bit. He's actually getting to run the football a little more. So I'd like to see how he ends the season. What do you think, JD?
Well, I'm actually going to go back to I want to go back to what you were talking about, Theo. We only have a couple minutes here before we got to close this out. And I think what you talked about is an important one because again, right now I'm degenning in crypto and investing and, reading charts and trading and all that. So a lot of that is very parallel with fantasy. Anytime something you bought at a certain price shoots up in value like that, I don't think I don't think you go wrong by cashing out, because as long as you make the proper trade, you can build that. Because Debo's moved up to what did we say on the last show? He's a top 10 for a lot of people right now. How much higher is he going to go? How much higher is he going to go with the guys that we just talked about, right? So at best, he keeps that value there. But if you cash out and now you pivot to another piece that still has room to go up, you continue increasing your value, but now you've added other pieces with it. So let's say you go Debo for Higgins in a second, or something like that. Like I'm just throwing, I don't even know what the values are on that. I'm just throwing that out there, but something like that. Someone who has room to grow, like an Elijah Moore and like a pick, and you're selling Debo, or who's the other Moore? Wow, blanking.
I would definitely want more, like a lot more than that. I think
Again, like I said, the values are. This is just throwing. My whole point is the pivot. If you can pivot to another piece, it still has room to grow, to increase, and you think that he can bring you to that value, or maybe the package that you're bringing in is bringing you that kind of value, and you're filling in, even if it's another position, if it's not a pick, or you're getting a pick, another receiver, and another position. My point is, I don't think you're ever wrong selling when there's such a big increase in value for an asset.
No doubt. I mean, I think that's dynasty in a nutshell. I think really is being able to gauge when to cash out, and being able to kind of not necessarily do the popular thing, but do the thing that puts your team in the greatest chance, to win for multiple years. And sometimes it's doing the thing that maybe feels uncomfortable in terms of moving a player that's absolutely smashing. People are not going to overpay you for a guy who's playing like shit. It's just never going to happen.
So we have a question from Kyle. We'll throw some quick rapid fire here before we close out. Mike Davis or Singletary, Dalton?
Mike Davis. He has pass catching ability.
Theo?
Mike Davis, especially tonight with Cordero not playing.
Dan, I think, was saying Ramondre as a sell. I believe that's what he was saying.
But what are you going to get?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Ramondre, I just don't know what you're going to get in Dynasty, because people are not going to overpay for him. I feel like you're better off just rolling the dice on him finishing out the season and hopefully getting something then, because people are not going to pay up for one game, and they're not going to pay for a day 3 guy.
Theo, I actually just made a Ramondre trade yesterday. It was AJ Green and Ramondre Stevenson for Nico Collins and a second-round pick, 2022 second. So, that's
a great trade. That's a great. I mean, I think you did very well with that one, because you get a couple of weeks ago, you're not getting the 2022 second for Ramondre, and Nico Collins has, like we talked about, room to grow. I like Nico a great deal. So I like a trade like that makes sense. Maybe a team's running back needy, but I don't know. I feel like with sometimes with guys like Ramondre, it's better off just to roll the dice on the chance that maybe he's going to have a few more games, and maybe he gains value heading into the offseason, and then you sell him. So I don't know. It's if you get offered a second plus, like, I think that's a great way to cash out. But I'm just not seeing those kind of trades in most of these leagues. So.
All right, guys, it's 8 p.m. Thursday night football is coming on soon. I know by the face of Theo's, or the color of Theo's face, that he has some serious lineups to go check on right now. So
100%. I've got about 30 of them, JD.
For sure, buddy. And thanks for putting the a lot of the Tonight Show together. You stepped in big time while I was out there, working the real world. Dalton. Awesome guest, man. Just tons of goodness. I wish we had more than an hour. Unfortunately, on Thursdays, we just do 60, but we'd love to get you back on the district on the main show. We go usually like 90. If your mom or your wife lets you longer, we go, till the mornings. But spit out your deets, anything you want the people to remember, where to find you, where to find your goodness, especially the new stuff, the betting stuff. I'm sure a lot of people are interested before we close this out.
Yeah, so you can check out my my betting content on 4for4 on their betting stuff. So every single week I'll be putting out a weekly special article there. I do a lot of dynasty just takes on Twitter, so I just kind of throw out historical comps and whatnot. over there. So you can follow me. It's at Dalton Guru FF on Twitter. So just kind of just throw like takes I like. I mean, I play a lot of leagues, so it's just mainly just guys who I think are doing well or guys I'm invested in, and just a lot of stuff like that. It kind of gives just like an interesting perspective from that standpoint. And then yeah, I mean, like nothing else like too crazy. I'm just hoping to run hot here these last few weeks, especially in the main event. So got a couple teams that have potentially a chance. So we'll see what happens there.
Nice.
Good luck with that, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you guys. At Dalton Guru FF on the Twitter sphere. Make sure you're following him. Theo, always a blast with you, brother. Anything you want to close this out with?
No, this coming Tuesday we're gonna have Fancy Mojo, Darren Armani on, and then Thursday we have the Canadian special, which is gonna be fun for the Goat District. JD's putting together a nice group of Canadian fantasy football minds. It's gonna be pretty awesome. Before we have Chicago Detroit, it might actually be more entertaining than the Chicago Detroit game. That's a pretty safe bet. So, thanks, Dalton, and we'd love to have you come back on this off season, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
For sure. Shout out to Will and Viridian Global. Guys, this hat, so comfortable. The Flex Fit, Canadian National Best Ball League. All the GOAT gear is on the same site, guys. ViridianGlobal.com/collections/GOAT District. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next Tuesday. Fantasy Mojo. Dan, get better. Guys, go get those W's. Go get those W's. We'll check you all.